certainly since like coming out like to everyone I know, like I'm just far more like loosey-goosey when it comes. I feel far less rigid. I think there's like a kind of a dulling kind of switch on being a guy where it's like you feel like you kind of have to temper everything a little bit. Nowadays I'm just far more like, here's me. I'm a bit more like in your face. I don't know if it's just a confidence thing about having coming out, but I think more likely it's on a deeper kind of level where it's like I feel more free and open to just kind of express myself.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Soul Kink Therapy, the podcast where each week we have a new kinky guest on where we explore their fetishes, kinks, desires, and patterns to support their path to liberation. And in this case, we have an honored guest of Jess Kelly. Jess is from Bristol. She is a completely out and proud, how should we say, genderfluid or crossdresser?
Either's fine. Yeah.
Either's fine. Today we're going to talk about, as Jess describes, the difference between performative gender and innate gender, which I'm very excited to explore. Welcome to the podcast, Jess.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, so good. So let's actually dive right in. What does it mean, the difference between innate gender and performative gender? Like, that was such an interesting, like, way to lift off this conversation. I'd love to hear some.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, when you kind of live in one particular gender as, you know, innately, such as me as a male,
Yeah.
the way that like I kind of like found myself slowly getting attracted to this was the kind of almost like elevated kind of femininity, like what that kind of means, like the ritual of girls putting on makeup and getting ready and all that stuff. And I guess like almost like viewing it like kind of stepping into a bit of a character kind of thing. I don't know, like but then equally something in me is clearly drawn to like wanting to do this. But like, is that based on the fact that there's something inside me that's like, you like to step into your feminine every once in a while? Or is it that I'm just like kind of envious of the kind of rituals that women get to do? I don't know. I think there's a blurred like line there.
It's almost like as a masculine, like I agree because the experience of being in feminine body is deeply ritualistic.
Yeah.
There's the getting the ready. There are all types of rituals baked in. The community aspect, and I have gone to plenty initiation ceremonies in all kinds of different ways, but those have been stripped away from the masculine,
Mm.
like initiation into malehood,
Yeah.
right? Where there was some sort of like you are a man now or something like that. Those we don't have those anymore. Are you saying that like in one way those rituals are stripped away from masculinity, and so it's like, oh, maybe we can find them in femininity, versus like I'm inherently feminine and that needs to be expressed? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the male side, the masculine doesn't necessarily have these kind of, I mean, we have rituals, but they're not necessarily ones that are like shared in the same way that I think that feminine ones are like
Yeah.
shared. Like a guy getting ready is chucking some stuff on and just walking out the door without really too much thought.
Yeah.
A guy going out with his mates is, you know, it's very much like maybe there's a little bit of game competition to the whole like experience,
Yeah.
but beyond that, it's a little bit of
Unintentional.
yeah, and I think it can veer very quickly into every man for himself a little bit. Like everyone's got their own little thing going on of why they're there, and whereas I think from the feminine perspective, it's a lot more about like sharing in the experience of building like an evening together or a day together or whatever. And I don't know, I find that really interesting.
That is really interesting. This is something that I say often, which is the feminine, because I'm a big believer that there's feminine in every being. There's masculine and feminine in every being.
Yeah.
regardless of what gender you're attracted to, what sex you were born as, like whatever, whatever. I always say that the feminine is inherently communal, the feminine in
Yeah.
all of us. And which is why I'm such a huge advocate for like cohorts and women's groups and men's groups and crossdresser groups,
Yeah.
which is why I'm launching one right now. Of like getting people together to actually be intimate. So my question is, do you feel like if you had more of those rituals baked into your experience of masculinity, you would not be as drawn to cross-dressing?
That's an interesting
It is an interesting.
it's an interesting hypothetical. I think there's probably maybe something to that. I mean, I guess ultimately, like when I first started doing this, it was quite individualistic. Like it was just
Yeah.
for me behind closed doors. So I didn't I I didn't necessarily think about like these kind of deeper kind of levels of it. At first, it
Yeah.
was like, okay, this is somewhere between like some inner like identity thing versus potentially something that's related to kink. I'm not sure yet. I'm just figuring it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying these things, and then I suppose once I first started like coming out to friends and stuff like that, then suddenly I'm like, wait, there's an opportunity here. I can get ready with my girlfriends or something. I can have a girls'
Yeah.
night. I can, whether that's staying in and watching a movie, or whether it's going out to a club or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
and that kind of like then just awoke something in me where it's like, what other things have I not been able to experience from the guy's
Oh,
side? Like, and maybe
wow.
it's just like I just want to have like the full picture of the human experience in some ways. I want to have all the guy stuff and I want to have all the girl stuff, and I'm just greedy. I don't know, but like I think I think it really just comes down to like it scratched an itch in me that I didn't realize needed scratching,
Wow.
and then suddenly it's like, yeah, okay, what else can I kind of do to like further this? But then I guess equally going back to your question, like I don't struggle with being a guy necessarily
Yeah.
in my day-to-day life. Like I'm not riddled with like anxiety over that fact. I'm pretty casual. I'm quite happy with like who I am and stuff like that. I just think that every now and again, stepping outside of that into this role, this persona, whatever you want to call it, just it just completely opens up a different menu of
Ah.
experiences for me, which is like probably the reason why I think I would always probably find my way back to this, whatever happens.
I love that. That's so beautiful and so poetic in so many different ways. Like it is taking the break from masculinity to go like head first into the femininity in order to it sounds like it also like loosens your masculinity. Can you describe what has cross-dressing done for your overall life and specifically your masculine self?
I think it's done a few things. I think like um certainly since like coming out like to everyone I know, like I'm just far more like loosey goosey when it comes. I feel far less rigid. I think there's like a kind of a dulling kind of switch on being a guy where it's like you feel
Mm.
like you kind of have to temper everything a little bit, like in terms of
Yeah.
emotions and stuff like that. And nowadays I'm just far more like, here's me. I'm a bit more like in your face. I don't know if it's just a confidence thing about having coming out, but I think more likely it's on a deeper kind of level where it's like I feel more free and open to just kind of express myself, I guess, like whether that's in a work context or with friends. Like I'm not like thinking about, oh God, I need to really consider how like I'm going to be perceived if I say certain things. Like um I'm just more willing to kind of throw myself into a conversation now, I think.
It sounds like you're more, like, emotionally attuned to yourself and maybe more emotionally available or vulnerable?
Yeah.
Does that sound
I
right?
No, I would say that for sure. I think like it's allowed me to be, yeah, more in tune with like the more sensitive kind of side of myself.
Hmm.
It's allowed me to kind of relate to other people's experiences better, I'd say as well.
Oh,
Like
wow, like your
kind of like,
empathy.
yeah, like receiving kind of like that from other people a little bit and being able to reciprocate in a way where I don't feel like I'm a robot just churning out like rote responses. Like this is
Mhm.
it has actually like awoken a side of me where I'm like, okay, I think I feel deeper like
Mm.
from having done this. So I feel like I can get to that kind of deeper point with you.
The more that I talk to crossdressers, specifically crossdressers who are sort of out and liberated, because a couple episodes ago I had on Georgia, I think Brooks is
Yeah,
her
she's great.
name. Yeah. Are you familiar with her? Are you friends with her?
Yes. Yeah. We follow each other on Instagram and we chat occasionally. So
I love that. There seems to be a little mafia network of like
yeah.
out Instagram, out cross dressers that they all know each other and they all know. Do you know Penny as well?
Yeah. I love Penny. Yeah, she's great.
Ah, that's so funny. How fun! I like eventually I'm gonna have had the entire
Yeah.
mafia on my podcast because
Get
you
us
all
all on
are
at the same time. Yeah.
seriously, you all are so inspiring. And just your stories and your just taking that space, I feel like is just so helpful to so many people. But the more that I talk to all you ladies, the more I am like this firm believer that every single person who's born in a male sex body should have experienced cross dressing. Like
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel like it's a vitamin C. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
everyone take your vitamin C. No, no, no. Have some vitamin C.
Yeah. Like make it mandatory on some level.
Right?
Like yeah, whether that's early on or whatever. But like I think there's some I don't know what necessarily it's like so much in the US, but actually in the UK there is a bit of a kind of a there's a separate culture where it's like lads, you know, the guys who go out with their mates and they kind of get drunk at the pub and stuff like that. And
Huh,
like for
lads.
for for them, like if they're going on like a stag do or you know a bachelor party, I suppose you call it, like there's a lot of the time where it's like the groom will dress up in as a bride kind of thing, but it's kind of done to be
Oh,
like
really interesting.
yeah, it's kinda done, I suppose, to be a little bit like pseudo humiliation, like, I suppose, like, you know,
Yeah.
he's the butt of the joke, so we put him in a dress and we're gonna parade him around all these bars around town kinda thing. Whereas, like, you know, they're not that it's just like the guy in the dress, like, there's no, like,
Yeah,
shaving of
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
beard, there's no makeup or anything like that necessarily. Um,
Fascinating.
but, like, there's quite a lot of that, like, I go around, like, Bristol, like, and, you know, even though it's quite a liberal city, like you still see
Yeah.
these kind of groups of guys going out and be like, "Hey, he's dressed as a ballerina," or something like that, and it's interesting that that's still around, but I think
Huh.
why are they doing it? Because there's a deeper desire there maybe? Like, you know, like who suggests that? Is it the groom being like, "Oh, I guess I'll dress up as the bride," kind of thing, or like yeah.
Well, I've after speaking with a lot of trans folks, I've also really, um, recognized the pattern of how all trans folks start with, Halloween. Like, every
Mm.
Halloween, they'll
Yeah.
dress as a woman, but
Mhm.
they'll be, like, actually passing, and
Yeah,
they'll
right.
work really hard to be passing, and they're like, "Oh, it's just Halloween, la, la, la."
It's a
But
gateway drug.
as it's did you have that experience?
I think Halloween was probably the first time I was, like, sort of dressed around other people, like, for the first
Ha!
time, yeah, so
It is a gateway drug, that's so
yeah,
funny. There's also this thing in, this city called Philadelphia, which is where I lived, but they have this thing called Mummers Day Parade. Philadelphia is a very blue collar,
yeah,
very, like, kind of Boston-esque kind of place, and they have this thing called Mother's Day Parade on New Year's Day where everyone gets super smashed, and
yeah,
all of these, like, South Philadelphia, like, I mean, you kinda get the idea. They're dressed as, like, women and skirts and makeup, but it's, like, the
yeah,
only time a year they are given permission to a socially acceptable way to step outside of their very strict gender norms.
right, yeah.
And it's fascinating. People go all out, and of course, they're, like, drunk and whatever, but it's, like, actually, like, it also just makes me feel like how deeply suffocating masculinity can be.
Yeah, right, and, like, the fact that there has to be almost an occasion for people to, like, step into just this different kind of space, like, when, you know, and like you were saying, you know, um, they're doing it kind of because there's a cultural thing and they're using that as a sort of a little excuse or something, I don't know, or if it's just a their mates are teasing them to do it or something. I don't know, but
Well, because and this is the thing I've said quite a lot, is because at the root of that, like, hilarity or humiliation is misogyny.
yeah,
Because, like,
exactly.
how dare you want to step into the lower privilege
Hmm.
when you're the higher privilege? Because if a woman steps out dressed as a man, it's not we don't get the same
Yeah,
humiliation joy out of it. It's just like, cool, you're wearing pants and like a like maybe if you put on like a beard, maybe it's kind of
yeah,
silly, but
totally.
it's not the same like plummet from status.
Yeah, and like I don't think the few times like when I first started going out before I was like fully out to everyone, like I don't think like I ever experienced anything as humiliation. There's a little bit of fear and trepidation.
Mm.
Um and I've thankfully have been able to I've had a pretty good run in that I've not like had like negative comments or anything like that necessarily. Like I think I've picked my moment to go out and like people have been very cool with it. There was one guy who I think on the first night I went out, he yelled like, "Are you a guy?" Like just like across the street, and I went like, "Yeah," and then he was like, he, and then there was a long pause. And he just went, "Cool," and then he just carried on walking, and I'm like, "Okay, well, I think this is good. I think I could get away with doing this more." So
I love that. How did you feel when that happened?
there was this kind of moment of like, oh god, the jig is up. Like the whole world
Yeah.
is now like staring at me because it was like loud and it was like a busy
Yeah.
street and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I can't just like ignore it really. And I
Yeah.
think maybe just like I said before, this kind of bringing out a bit more like the confident side of me to like express myself. It was like just a little nervous, like, yeah, but like enough to be heard. And then, after that, I was like, I think I handled that the best way I could. Like, and obviously he was cool with it. So even better.
That's amazing. There's something about that that brings me so much delight. But also, I feel very protective of you if you were trans.
Yeah, of
Because,
course.
right, like the outside could look the exact same and the
Yeah.
inside could be completely different.
Hmm. Yeah. And like, I mean, that experience happened, I want to say like 2013, like
Wow.
quite a while ago now in my life. So I've been doing this for a while. So like, I
But
think you wouldn't necessarily, I don't know if people have that experience now, like people yelling on the street about that sort of thing. Like it was like a night out. So like, people
yeah.
drinking and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But like, I don't know if things have moved on in a way that like everyone's a bit more aware of transgender people. So there's
Yeah.
going to be far less people yelling that sort of thing, or
Yeah.
if it's just going to be straight up abuse from the people who who think that way.
So that was 2013. When did you come out, Jess?
Well, it's been a process. I guess the first people I was telling was back in like 2012. 2013 was like first time like going out, and then kind of slowly told friends over the next few years. And then I told my sister and around like 2016 or something like that, and she was super great about it. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to work up to tell my parents, and then after that
Wow.
I can just tell, and then I can just do everyone
Now it's
basically.
just everyone.
Um, and I had a plan. My parents are separated, so I told my mum, and that went really well. And I was like, right, now I'm going to set up a meeting to go and see my dad. And then
Oh
this
gosh.
little thing called COVID happened,
Mhm.
and we
Yeah.
all locked down. And I was like, oh no, I can't tell him over like Zoom or anything like that. That's going to be a weird conversation. So I had to wait like a year and a half
Whoa.
to like finally have a proper like sit down like chat with him to be like, okay, this is the deal kind of thing. And again, he was fine with it as well. He was great with it. So
Ah,
so after
your
that, I
whole
was just like,
family was just great with it.
yeah, I mean, like, there's obviously questions, but thankfully, my sister, who I'd obviously previously told, came along to those chats to be like, let's, like, she can be
Ah,
there as like a kind of a third party to be like, look, I've had all these questions before, I can help guide you through it. And so after
that
that,
is
it was,
such a good ally.
yeah, totally. And that was like one of the reasons why it became like so easy to tell them because she was like, yeah, I'll just be there. And I'm like, great, well, that's, I've
How
got support.
how often back then my question is, what was the process of coming out like? Like, when were you like, "Oh, I this is such an important part of me that it's time to make the rounds," 'cause
Yeah.
that feels like a pretty big step for a lot of people of like, "This is
Hmm.
just something that I do for myself after work, like, it's not harming anyone, no one needs to know about it," versus, "Okay, I it's time for me to go public with that." Like, when did you how old were you, and what was that leap like?
So I was at university. I was in my sort of first year. So it was like my first year, like living away from my family. So
Uh-huh.
it's like I have my own space. This is when I'm starting to really start experimenting with it.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I think the first person I told, I didn't really tell. I kind of half told because there wasn't really a decision there so much as there was a night out, and then one guy who was like a few years above me in the university. He kind of like um he was quite he was a flamboyant character, let's say, and he sort of talked about like painting his nails and like and he
Mhm.
just at one point said about like, oh, how nice it is to like wear a dress or something like that, and then I think I just like sort of drunkenly said like, yeah, me too, and then like didn't really know like, and then I went home and had a panic attack about that because I was like, oh god, like he's
Oh,
gonna tell everyone, and then it was yeah, so I didn't really like consciously be like I'm coming out to someone right now.
yeah.
I just sort of blurted something out and then panicked about it later.
And
Um,
before that point, like, how often were you dressing? Like, what was your relationship with your femme?
I think it was like maybe like 2 or 3 times a month.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't super often. To be fair, that's about how often I do it these days.
Yeah.
It kinda comes in ebbs and flows. But, yeah, at the time, it was very much like, okay, I have a room in a student, like, flat, and
Mhm.
so once that door locks after dark kind of thing, I guess it was such a
Mhm.
tiny room as well, and I barely had like room to just. I had like a wig and 2 dresses, and that was it.
Mhm.
Like, um, and then in my second year, I moved into a bigger house, and I was like, well, I should tell some of the guys I'm living with, but oh, they're all guys. That's scary. I'll go and tell a girl first. That maybe that'll be easier.
I
Um,
honestly feel like that's the way to go.
yeah,
What do you think?
yeah, I think like I certainly back then I was like, guys won't understand this. There's no way that they could
Right.
possibly like, and they weren't like lads. They were kind of all like nerdy kids like me basically. But I still thought like it will feel more comfortable telling a woman because they'll be able to help me on some level. They'll be
Yeah.
able to understand why I want to do this because they're familiar with this. They do this anyway. So I told a girl that I was kind of like sort of semi-seeing, like as like the first sort of proper person that I told, and that kind of just then opened me up to tell a few more. And then by that point, I was like, right, I could tell my housemates, and that's when the boulder just started. There was almost like
Growing.
this kind of like. I could have had a chart in my room like it's been 0 days since you have last come out to someone. Like it was almost like every week I was just like telling someone new, and I would like, be like, no, by the way, you now. So it just kind of kept happening, basically.
Was it a thrill? Like, was it,
Yeah,
like, exciting? You were like, "Hey, guess what? This is
I
the
think
cool thing
so.
about me."
Yeah, like after the first few, when I was like, kind of really after the fact, like struggling, like and panicking about what it meant. Then it became easier and easier because I had those people in my corner because they'd already been like, no, it's cool, like it's great. So then I'm like, oh, cool, more of this. I'm actually able to emotionally connect to people, and so it was like
Hmm.
possibly even overcompensation, where I was just like really trying to like find people to tell because that was so exciting. But like, um, I lived with people who were happy with me,
Mm.
like dressing up around them,
Wow.
and like I said, I had a few like nights out and stuff, and then yeah, so it did kind of like snowball a little bit. The only time it really kind of shut down was like straight after university when I moved back in with my dad. And it was just the two of us. And by this
Whoa.
point, this was years before I eventually got
Yeah.
around to obviously telling him. So it was like when my stuff went into storage,
Yeah.
I kind of felt like the place we were staying was so small there wouldn't have been any room to like hide anything. So I was I didn't feel good for that year. I felt pretty depressed, to be honest. It was like a,
Really?
a full year of just, yeah, not really being able to do this thing that I was starting to build up and really enjoy doing regularly and, at least talking to people about. So
Actually, that's a great point. What is it like when you don't have an opportunity to become Jess?
it can feel a little bit suffocating, like long term. Like, I think, like, these days, I could maybe get away without doing it for like a month
Hmm.
and kind of feel okay. But after that point, I really start to feel like not, I want to say unbalanced because that makes me sort of sound potentially unhinged, but,
No, I mean, that sounds
um,
very
It
understandable.
it's more along the lines of, like, this doing this, like, centers me and, like, makes me
Hmm.
like, it sort of gives me this kind of release that then, like, feeds into, how I feel going into the rest of my kind of week, following this.
Mm,
And so without that kind of the opportunity to do that, um, you kind of end up having these weeks that turn into months where you just kind of feel like a bit stuck.
like
And
trapped?
yeah, I think that's what it was. And there was sort of points where like I was sort of desperately looking online to see if there was some sort of like service I could go to go and do it like quietly, or there was, stuff like that. And um I kind of ended up sort of looking more into the online sort of side of things. And then like,
Right.
around that time it was all like there's a few websites that are more sort of geared towards like kink, and I'm like, well, I can't even like think about it in this way, because like for me it wasn't like that, like towards the tail end of uni it was just like an expression thing. um
Hmm.
so it's like, if I can't, like, I was kind of living vicariously through people online a lot at that time. And I had like pictures from my time at uni that I just sort of look at and feel, you know like those were the days kind of thing.
Huh.
Which is really sad.
Yeah.
But then I moved in with some. It was kind of a friend of a friend, as the first sort of place I moved out to, after living with my dad. And day two of knowing these people that I was moving in with, I was like, guys, I need to tell you something. And
BTW.
yeah, and they were like, great. And so I just got all my stuff back from storage and just pretty much started like as soon as it arrived. And I'm like, right, great, this is good. I'm making up for lost time now.
Ah, that's so yeah, I can only imagine, and it makes me have so much empathy for so many people that I talk to online or even on this podcast that don't that feeling of being trapped in the
Yeah,
masculine, and the feeling of being hollowed out and emptied. Yeah,
that's what it was. Yeah,
and then also, like, the desperation of just, like, maybe I can find this online somewhere, but then also online, there's not really the intimacy or the
yeah,
depth or the of 'cause they're generally giant forums. Are you
absolutely.
familiar
Yeah,
with those? Like, with
yeah.
400 like, millions of people on them, and everyone's also just sort of, like, is nervous to say the real thing, so then they're just like, "Do you like this dress?" When really they wanna be like, "I'm feeling really secure today, can somebody help me?" You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Is that the
Yeah.
experience you've had on these forums? Or what was
Yeah, I
your
mean,
experience?
there's the website TV Chicks,
Yeah,
which
I've
is
heard of
like,
this. This is a UK
yeah,
thing.
yeah, and like it was something that I did join like back when I first started doing it, and I was kind of like tangentially on it a little bit during uni. Um, but then obviously it kind of became my like gateway into like just sort of feeling like still part of this world that I couldn't really experience.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like set up as like I think it's T-girl contacts and dating is what it's like set up to be, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And there's like a side of it that skews really just like this is purely a sexual thing. And then
Yeah.
there's a side of it that is like gender identity. And those two things don't always like perfectly align with each other, I think.
Totally.
There is a real kind of like, you know, schism, maybe is probably a bit of an extreme word, but I think it did come across that way sometimes, like people who are really trying to come on here and just connect as people versus people who are looking for hookups, people who are looking for
Mhm.
like
The kink side
relationships
of
and stuff.
things.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, from that side, I'm like, well, I think I know which camp I kind of belong to, which is probably like less so in the kink side, but like, you know, that there was obviously an attraction to doing this in the first place. So do I want to completely throw out that side of me? So I'm like trying to take in the whole experience of it, and I'm seeing all these people, you know, sometimes they're just arguing like online about like what it means, and being like, do I have enough information on my limited experience to be able to even participate? Because I'm not even doing this actively anymore. Like
Yeah.
this is a moment where I'm not doing this. So do I even have a right to be part of these conversations? Like,
It's really interesting how it seems like so you tell me, it seems like those 2 sides can really, like, other the other.
yes,
Does
I
that
think
make
so.
sense? I'm just like, "No, no,
Yeah,
no, I'm not that," and the other person's like, "No, no, no, I'm not
yeah,
like, you want this just for your sexual? No, 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 I'm more rooted, I'm more like, this is about identity and I'm more deep," and the other part's just like, "Ew, like, I'm not a girl, I just,
yeah.
like to masturbate in girls' clothes."
Exactly, 100%. There's the kind of side from like the trans side, or the people like that who say like,
Like gender
that
fluid.
yeah, the kinksters give us a bad reputation because they're kind of the people that like, the common people are like, afraid I'm going to come into their bathrooms and do something like, illegal.
Hmm.
And then on the flip side, you have the kinksters who are like, kind of there, like, looking at these people who are like, stop taking this all so seriously. We're doing this for fun and
A
for
good
release and for,
time.
yeah, exactly. And so inevitably there's going to be some conflict there, really, and kind of finding myself sort of in the middle and not really necessarily knowing which camp I belong to out of the two is just like was very overwhelming at that time. And then so like after the fact, I'm like, I'm going to just step away from this website for a bit and come back to it when I actually know
Yeah.
a bit more about who I am.
Yeah.
And I've kind of checked in with it every now and again, but like really that was like my experience. It was just sort of, it was almost like you stop going outside and you just go on like Facebook for your news or something like that instead. Like that's what it sort of felt like. You just see
Oh,
these little weird like
fascinating.
echo chambers like going at each other a little bit. So
Fascinating. I
yeah,
think that's literally that exact reason is why I'm launching this cohort called Outrageously Hers, because I've heard so many people say the very same thing of like we actually need the intimacy and the depth to in the facilitation to be able to support each other in this more
yeah.
intimate way to like foster me through this experience. So my question is, where are you how would you describe where you are now with your identity and sexuality in ways that this is expressed?
So like these days, I've been fully out to everyone for about almost 4 years now.
I know you
I
have a
guess
whole giant Instagram situation going
I do,
on.
which was a complete like surprise. I just thought
Mm.
I had some photos on Facebook and stuff, and I was like, oh, I'll set up an Instagram because I see some girls on there, and then all of a sudden it's like crazy taken off. It's
It's
been
taken off. What's your Instagram handle just in case people wanna look you up?
I'm at Jess Kelly CD for CD crossdressing if you want to, yeah,
Yeah.
that way.
It's a
So
beautiful Instagram. You've done a gorgeous job. And you've
thank
got
you very
like
much.
40,000 like insane
Yeah,
amounts.
yeah, like I think within the first few weeks I had like 20,000, which was, and then since then it's just kind of
What do
continued
you
to
what do you think
slowly
that
trickle up.
says?
I don't know. I mean, like maybe it's because I just had all this like all my good stuff like saved up from like years of doing it before I like sort of launched, I suppose. And because I was authentically out from the start, I think that's been something that people really resonated with. And I get really lovely messages from people saying about like, that they find it inspiring and like it was I've never put anything out there thinking that that could even be a possibility, but the fact that people kind of look at that stuff, and through it, I've been able to make connections with people. I've gone and visited friends who I've made like through it,
Wow.
and I've like been able to go out on big like social nights out and stuff like that. I've got a couple of products that I have like discount
What?
codes for and stuff, and they
Oh,
send
you
them for
fancy,
free.
huh?
Yeah, I am so fancy. I got like a wish list that people buy me like gifts through and stuff. So it's just like
Wow.
it's just kind of crazy because like if you told 18-year-old me who is like just sort of going into the uni bedroom and like not really knowing what any of this meant, that it was ever going to get to this stage, like I would have like just laughed. That just sounds
Would
ridiculous.
you have wanted it?
I
Would
mean,
you have wanted to be a public figure?
Yes and no. I think there's there's like pros
Huh.
and cons to it. I mean, the other side of things, and this probably goes back a little bit back to the like the performance stuff that I was like talking about earlier,
Yeah.
is that like I love like acting and performing and things like
Mm.
that. And I perform improv comedy on stage like
Mm.
very very regularly. I'm playing a band.
Mm.
I do a lot of stuff where I'm like I love putting myself like on stage and doing stuff like this. And but then to do this and have this side of me become like almost like a character, a public figure, whatever you want to call it, like it suddenly felt a lot more personal and vulnerable like than any of that
Yeah.
other stuff I was doing, even though I pour like myself into the songwriting I do with a band, and improv is naturally very much like here's what my first instincts are like whenever I'm in a
Mhm.
scene or something like that. This is like this is a lot more authentically like me throwing myself out there. So
Mm.
it feels very different in that sense, but I'm trying to make it feel as like authentically myself as possible and not so much like I'm a brand, I'm a character or anything
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that, and
yeah.
it's very easy to do that on Instagram where you're like, well, I'll just make sure it all follows this particular style, or
Yeah,
I kind of have
formula.
all the captions seem like they're like too cool for school kind of thing. And it's like, no, I'm gonna be a bit goofy on there. I'm gonna be a bit silly and try out some stuff that like maybe a lot of the other girls aren't trying, because why would you like dress up like you know, a weird nurse or something like that? Like a, you know, I like just trying lots of different things. So
Mm. Let me ask you, what does it feel like? What's the difference in the way you feel when you're in your masculine versus when you're in Jess? Because I know you can probably relate to this as the performance aspect, and also I have like a free masterclass coming up about like embodied feminization, and it's
mm,
like the shoulders and the hip and like the
yeah.
general internal feeling. Can you help me understand what that's like for you?
Yeah, I think for me, it kind of comes in a few phases where like my guy side, I don't really ever sort of second guess what it is just to like go around and be,
Uh huh.
I'm kind of just and in that sense, I don't really take much like care over my like appearance.
Sure.
I don't really second guess how I like move for a space or anything like that. With this, I think certainly today I was like putting my makeup on, and like that is immediately like I start feeling like I can kind of feel the sort of femininity slowly coming out. The more makeup is applied to me, the more
Hmm.
I kind of put the outfit on. It's usually as soon as the wig goes on after that that I'm like, all right, I'm in it now. Like, and I'm suddenly like, I'm posing in front of the mirror. And I think that stuff has kind of been not earned, but like I've kind of built that up over time. Like,
Oh,
um, the ability to just be in a mirror and be like, okay, I can take like pictures now. I can
yeah.
embody this. And maybe it's because I've been able to see my own reflection through like the pictures that I've been able to take, that I kind of know my best angles. And so like
Huh.
I think it kind of becomes a little bit like muscle memory in some way.
Mm.
It's like femininity to me is muscle memory, where it's like, okay, I've put all the things on that I need to kind of step into this, and then suddenly it just kind of kicks in. And so once I'm in this space for long enough, it kind of becomes very similar to my masculine, where I'm not thinking about it anymore. It's just happening.
Yeah.
I
But
think it took a while
s
to get there, but yeah.
standing back, can you help us understand the difference? Like, do you sit differently? Can you tell me, like,
Yeah.
for example, like, what is your body doing right now that's different than if you're in your
So,
masculine?
like, right now, I've got, like, my legs together and kinda off to one side. I'm gonna try and
Yeah.
show you a little bit, actually. Like, I'm
Oh,
just kinda like
yay.
I'm
Okay,
just kinda
yeah.
like this kind of
Yeah.
vibe, and
Uh-huh.
I'm kind of, like, got my hands, like, down in my lap kinda thing, so
Uh-huh.
I can kind of have my shoulders back and stuff like that. So
Shoulders back,
the boobs are a little
legs
bit more prominent.
crossed.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Playing with my hair a lot more, which is definitely something different from my guy mode, who is bald. So
Yeah.
that's very different as well. Um, yeah, and also just more expressive in my hands. I
I
feel
was
like
gonna
my
say a lot more hand movement. I just saw you, like,
yeah,
shift your ring around.
yeah, exactly. And some of that is like, I don't know if that's like anxiety or anything like that, but like, there's just these little kind of things where I don't have this when I'm as a guy. I don't wear any kind of accessories or anything like that.
Or nail
So
polish.
yeah, well, actually, I do wear nail polish 24/7. That's one thing since I've come out where
Oh,
I'm
cool.
like, I'm
Wow,
just very,
interesting.
very cool. That's like my one like signifying to people, like, by the way, this guy might be a little bit queer kind of thing. Like that's just my little flag to people, like, hey, I might be kind of gender fluid, so approach with caution.
Oh, that's really does that help almost, like, anchor you a little bit more? So it's like no matter where you are in your
Yeah,
expression, it's always there?
totally. Yeah, it's like a nice the one of the hardest things about when you sort of do this early on is the kind of before you've kind of started telling people, is the kind of the having to take it off. You've put on
Mm.
this sort of feminine persona. You've had a good maybe few hours or a day or so, like being able to
Mhm.
really enjoy it, and then either like rapidly, if the parents come home,
Yeah.
or over time, you have to do this kind of slow kind of just like peeling it all back, and then like going back into guy mode kind of thing. And now it's kind of nice for
Yeah.
me to be like, I don't need to remove this, not just because it's logistically, it takes time,
Mhm.
but like it's that little bit of like, she's still in there.
Mhm.
She's not gone away. She'll be back soon kind of thing. So
Mhm.
it's nice for that reason.
I love that, that's beautiful, and you wear, like, red all that kind is there a signature color that you wear?
Red or black.
Red or
They
black?
tend to be my go-to, and actually because the band, um the aesthetic of the band is black and red is like predominant. So like most of the time it might be like black and red, or it might be like, so it kind of goes with a lot of our like color coordinated outfits and stuff
Yeah,
like
because
that.
I can imagine the black is also more masculine or can
It
go either
can
way
skew
kind
that
of
way a
thing.
little bit more, yeah. Whereas this is more overtly like
Yeah,
girly.
feminine. When you are in Jess, do you feel like I'm still kind of curious about your body. So it sounds like you feel more delicate, more fluid.
I think so, yeah.
Is there any other ways? How about this? Does your perception of the world change?
Yeah, I think so. There's a small subtle thing which I think comes with physicality, which is that I definitely sit upright more when I'm in this,
Mm.
and maybe it's because I'm a little bit cinched. Maybe it's because I've got like, you know, a tight sort of dress on, or shapewear or whatever it is underneath. But I kind of
Yeah.
sit up more, and I think as a result, that actually does kind of like bring me more to like attention. Like I am a bit more like focused on what's going on around me. Like, whereas like guy mode, you know, it's just immediately like, you know, slouching or leaning forward or whatever. I don't really sit with like good posture when I'm
Yeah.
in guy mode. Whereas like right now, you know, I feel like I'm alert and I'm present. So
Huh.
that's like a physical thing, kind of slightly informing the mental thing, which I think is really interesting.
So in jest, you feel much more present.
I think so. I mean, like maybe like I guess as I said earlier, like I'm certainly feel more emotionally present.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
because guy mode, I might just be thinking about like work project or like some like creative thing I'm doing, or so. Like I've got like all these kind of things going on. Whereas like there's a nice degree of like when I go into Jess, there's not normally an agenda of things for me to do. It's a bit more like,
Hmm.
okay, I can switch off from all that other stuff that's going on in the rest of the world, and just kind of be very much with who I'm with and enjoy
Hmm.
that. And like that's wonderful. Like I don't have to worry about Jess going to work tomorrow. I don't have to worry about
Hmm.
like Jess going off and having to do some big project or something like that. It's like I'm here now and I get to just be entirely in the moment.
Mm. That's beautiful. How does Jess date?
I suppose yes and no in that like I come as a package deal. Like
Yeah.
I'm being out. I'm like, you know, publicly like if you want guy me, you get Jess as well, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so in a way that kind of that's a bit more of a barrier to entry, I think, for obviously a lot of women. It's not necessarily like something that every woman wants to experience, which is totally fair. But I think you know, I'm kind of the fact that I can live authentically means that if I do meet people who you know, like both sides of me, then fantastic. Like my last relationship was with a bisexual woman, and she was very, very cool with both sides of me, and we're still really good
Mm.
friends and stuff like that. So like, you know, that's just like that's kind of how it goes really. And so I kind of I've not I don't want it to ever be like it used to be, where it's like this has to be a conversation after like, you know,
A month.
date
Yeah.
3 or whatever it is. Like if I can just be this upfront, then
Mhm.
like if that turns someone off from wanting to pursue me romantically, fine. Then that's I've sort of saved myself a bit of bother there. But like
Are you single and dating now?
I'm single right now. I'm not currently dating.
Yeah.
I've been single for about a year. But I'm kind of reasonably okay with being single. Like a lot of people, I've gone quite long stretches being single before, and I don't really actively pursue like people unless like I really like start connecting with someone,
Yeah.
like whether it's like someone I've met through like the shows I'm doing or something like that, or like my
Yeah.
projects and stuff, and I just and I latch onto someone. That's when that's when I pursue someone. But like for the
Mm.
most part, I'm like I just sort of keep doing my thing, because in a way, like I don't want to say like I'm in a relationship with myself, but like
Mm.
there is a degree of like I get like satisfaction from having this side of me, where like I'm not necessarily chasing a romantic partner in the same way. Like I don't know what the psychology is for that, but I'm sure you can tell me.
That's so well, now I'm just about to, like, armchair therapize
Yeah, sure.
or just even the concept of it, which is that is so interesting. It's like, because you don't need I feel like a lot of men are deeply attracted to feminine women
Yeah.
because they create the wholeness that they don't have within themselves, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's actually in my last podcast, I had a professional dom come in, and he talked about how when you fall in love with somebody, you're falling in love with the part of you desperately want in another
Yeah.
person.
Right.
Right? So, like, the idea is like, "Oh, I want you in my life so that I can have more of it. I can
Mm.
have more of it because I want that for myself, but it's not how I work." You know, so
Yeah.
the balancing out and creating wholeness, it is really interesting the idea that you are inherently, it's almost like self-reproducing.
Yeah, right, like, I'm kind of filling the needs, or I suppose not necessarily all the needs, but, like, some of the stuff that I would get from being with a woman, I can kind of get from being with myself.
Like, truly
Yeah,
embodying it.
embodying it, yeah, totally.
And then the other question is about, like, actual intimacy, like, romantic intimacy with another person. I
Yeah.
mean, do you feel like, what is that experience like for you as a cross-dresser?
I think it's quite fluid in the way that, you know, my gender is fluid, I suppose, like,
Mm,
there are days when, I'm in my masculine, and I will perform more traditionally sort of masculine roles,
yeah.
when I'm with a partner. And then there's other days where it skews the other way, and I might not necessarily be, fully dolled up or anything like that, but I might just sort of straight up tell them, "Look, I'm feeling more femme right now. Do you are you cool with us?" Like, and then it's usually fine. So then I kind of step into that, and kind of just sort of have that kind of muscle memory, the other side kind of kick in, I suppose, and then um, it kind of goes from there. So yeah, in a way, like it's sort of like, I guess it's like being a switch, but like the gender
Hmm,
identity is the switch, I suppose, rather than like
hmm.
dom versus sub or anything like that. So
That is amazing. I love the dynamicism that brings to your life.
yeah, and it certainly makes like every experience feel quite fresh, because it's like, okay, well, like I get to check in with myself before engaging with anything to say like, where am I at right now?
Hmm,
And then you communicate that with your partner, and then, you go
mhm.
from there, kind of thing. So it does keep things moving nicely, I think.
Do you have a lot of, people in your real life community that are cross-dressers? Like, do you have other cross-dresser friends, like, in your area, in your community?
There are some locals. There is actually there's like a monthly meetup now,
Oh.
which is quite nice. It's something that started like last year, and it's like the third Friday of every month, and everyone goes to a bar, and everyone it's sort of like the corner of a bar that's very open and accepting, and everyone goes and has a
Mm.
nice chat and a drink, and then after that, there's an option of like, do we want to go to this club? Do we want to go like to this gay bar or something like that? And we kind of like go from that point. But similarly, within that space, that kind of it's like a microcosm of that stuff I was talking about previously, where it's like you can tell that there's some people there for slightly different reasons than others.
Hmm. What does it feel like for you to be in that space?
It's nice. There's like trans women there. There's like other cross dressers there. There's people who are like, maybe it like might be their first time out ever,
Hmm.
and so like I feel like
Ah,
I get to sort of help them, and then I also learn from others and stuff like that, and it's what I get from it is just like my experience was never singular, despite how it may have felt at the time,
yeah.
and that um everyone else is coming from such radically different backgrounds when they do this, like that.
Yeah.
No two experiences are going to be the same, but there are still these little through lines and threads where it's like, oh, I've totally had that happen to me, or that experience that you've had is kind of similar to something that's happened to me previously, etc. So like, we bond over these kind of like little moments of whether it's,
Mhm.
built around initial shame of it, or whether it's about like, oh, wasn't it amazing when I finally got to wear that wedding dress or something like that, and you sort of you have these little kind of things to bond over, and it's lovely.
Hmm, that is lovely. In in 30, 40 years,
Mm.
what do you see as a progression or the vision for yourself as Jess?
It's kind of hard to like. I mean, I like thinking ahead. 30,
Mhm.
40 years, I think, is one of those things where it's like, I haven't really been very good at predicting. Like I think ahead, and every time I think ahead, it's like no, it's you've gone a different way.
Uh, it's
But
fair.
I suppose what I would like in
Yeah.
30, 40 years is um, kind of very much to still be doing this at the same kind of rate as I am doing it now. I
Mm,
don't I don't foresee transitioning in my future.
yeah.
I don't see getting rid of this. I think there's probably other kind of experiences I can have, going back to that thing I said right at the start, where it's like tapping into other kind of um traditional sort of feminine experiences, whether it's like I've not been to a salon before and got like my like my nails done by professionals. These small little kind of like micro things, I'm like, I want to just pull on more of those little things and get those into like my wheelhouse a bit more. And I'm very much a like I just want the whole pie kind of
Mm.
person. So 30, 40 years, maybe I'll make a bucket list or something, but like I'm very much I'm in a good place where I'm like, just keep doing what you're doing and enjoying it, and that's really
Wow.
the main thing. So
That is so beautiful. Do you see yourself in, like, partnership long term? And what would that look
yeah,
like?
I mean, like I think possibly, yeah. I think I would probably go for a long term relationship. Like if it's one of those things. Like I said, I'm not ever really actively pursued it, but if it comes up, then great. I'm going to hold on to it, and I feel like um, you know, the more I am authentically myself, the more comfortable I am in relationships as well. So like
Yeah.
hopefully each kind of connection is like
Yes.
deeper and deeper, and so who knows how many more it needs to be until that's the person, right? So um yeah,
I love that.
who knows? I might be on my own, but at the same time, that will probably still be fine.
I just wanna stitch that on a pillow for so many people who are like, "It's not ever possible. No woman's going to accept me as a crossdresser." But I think that's exactly true. The more authentically you are yourself, the more you become centered so that you can
Yeah,
meet another centered person to have a
100%.
centered relationship.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Okay, my last question for you is, what do you think it is that most crossdressers struggle with in terms of that? We talked about the step before between the private and then going
Yeah.
public. Like, what do you think most crossdressers struggle with, and how do you convince them that it's worth it?
I think kind of going back to what I said before about how coming out for me was like a long process over years that kind of unfolded and snowballed
Mm,
and eventually like reached the kind of like the top of the hill, which was family and then everyone.
mm,
I think there's a um when you see other cross dressers and gender fluid people online who are able to like come out and do stuff, there's probably a temptation now to be like, I should tell everyone, I should do that, I should just do that. Whereas I
mm,
think it worked for me because I did have those times of like, I tell the person that I'm closest to at that time, and then I slightly widen the circle, and I guess I was careful. Like it didn't like
mhm,
I mentioned there was a point where I was a bit gung ho about it, but like broadly, like it took me a long time to get to this place, and I
mm,
think the thing that cross dressers do struggle with is seeing someone who's authentically out and then being like, oh, why can't I have that now? And it's like, well, you can, but I think you have to get to it, and I think, like, it's hard to tell someone to, like, be patient and take your time with something like that when
mm.
they can already see that the results are, like, exciting and they wanna be a part of that. But there is absolutely something to be said of, like, almost, like, get good at, like, coming out to people, like, practice doing that,
Oh,
like,
wow.
there's like a you almost like
It's a
over
skill.
time yeah, over time you develop almost like an FAQ, like in your brain of like, these are the things that people have asked me each time, so I know to like include that in the spiel or something like that. So the questions they might have fewer questions because I'm like, well, I've already covered that kind of thing. So like the first time I came out versus maybe the 20th were so radically different from each other.
Mm.
And and then by the time I did the mass coming out, which was a long post on social media, like I sort of edited every word, every sentence to be like, I'm a writer in my spare time, so I'm very particular about like every word choice has to be important. But um, by that point, it was like, okay, I've perfected coming out to myself, so I've been able to
Yeah.
like do it in the most articulate way to the most amount of people at the same time. Whereas, like there may be a temptation for people to just sort of jump the gun and think they can do it. So I think my advice would be really just like find someone close that you feel close to already, and start just sharing bits of yourself with them in this space, and see how that feels, see what kind of questions arise, and then from there you kind of start understanding yourself better, so then you're able to articulate it better each time.
That is such beautiful advice. I absolutely love it. Okay, I lied because I actually have one more question.
Okay,
Um,
fine.
last question, final one for all of the money. Give if you could give some advice on feminization. Again, because I
Yeah.
have a shameless plug, I have a masterclass coming up in body feminization, May 14th.
Yes.
We're gonna be talking about this. So how, because I think that's a lot of cross-dressers are just like, I feel so good, and then I look in the mirror and then I'm like,
Mm.
I'm a 50-year-old, blah blah blah. Um what yeah, whether it's tips or tricks of, like, moving your body or feeling
Yeah.
or like, I know makeup and those technical things you can find online, but what is your advice?
My advice is actually it's a bit of a strange one, I think, but it's like for me, it's like angles are actually like super important. Like
Ah.
the thing that I've found that kind of separates like maybe a good picture of someone who's cross dressing versus a great one is often that they've kind of found the angle that kind of works for themselves. And I think part of this is like practice in the mirror. But like for instance, like there's a lot of people who I see they take like low angle kind of shots, and I'm like, well, immediately you're seeing like chin, and it's like it's not like flattering in the way. So I'm like, well, if I know that my selfie arm is up here, then immediately it's that's kind of it's important. So I think like be comfortable like not just always taking the same picture of yourself like straight on each time. Start
Yeah.
like looking at like dynamic ways of like seeing yourself from literally from different angles, and you
Yeah.
start actually realizing how you can move your body in different ways. Like I'm like, I think I originally was like I did this in every shot, because I was like I've seen women with their head,
Wait, can you
but
explain what you're doing for people who are on
yes,
audio?
so I would put my hands on my hips, and I would
Yeah,
think,
and then
I've
your
seen
shoulders are kind of
I
forward.
but my shoulders would be so far forward that it wouldn't look like flattering. But
Yeah.
then, yeah, over time you kind of learn it's like, all right, well, if you're going to do that, like you have your shoulders back, and
Shoulders
it looks
back, hips
and
on, kinda boobs
exactly,
out,
and have like
neck
one
up.
hip slightly cocked to one side, and yeah, so it's kind of just take maybe 10-20 minutes in front of a mirror before you start even taking any pictures, just to kind of like go between a couple of like angles and poses, and suddenly you feel more connected to yourself and your sort of feminine self,
Hmm.
but you're immediately able to, I think, achieve infinitely better results from any pictures or videos you take or anything like that. So that would be my top tip, I
That's
suppose.
such good advice. There's also something really profound about, the feminine can see things from different angles, right?
Absolutely.
Like, and
Yeah.
and so because there's a deeper sense of empathy within each of our feminines,
Yeah.
and so there is something kind of beautiful about like practice your angles both in your body and also in your perception.
Yeah.
Like, to
Totally.
be able to see other people's views, to be able to deeper compassion for yourself and others, along with, like, right side, left side, up,
Yeah.
down, corner.
100%.
I
Yeah,
love
and ju
that.
I just put some music on, like, have some music going so you, like, can feel like you
Yes.
can, like, move a little bit, like, freer while you're doing that. It just opens you up so much.
Amen. What a beautiful way to end. Thank you so much, Jess Kelly. And can you share if anyone wants to find you, tell me all of your things.
Yeah, so Instagram at Jess Kelly CD, and I'm also on YouTube. I've got, like, one video on there and a short, but there might be more stuff on there. You can probably just search Jess Kelly Crossdresser. I have a boy to girl transformation on there, which might be of interest to some people.
Ooh, I wanna take
Um
a look at that.
Yeah, which is it's a time lapse thing, but you'll get a sense of my process, so hopefully you enjoy that. But
That
yeah,
would be
that's kind of
great.
where I'm
I'm
at
gonna
like
I'll try to link that. Okay,
yeah,
go
that'd
ahead.
be lovely. But that's kind of where I'm at everywhere at the moment. I've just had a situation where actually Meta has tried to block my Instagram and Facebook accounts. I managed to get my Instagram back,
Oh
but
my
both of my Facebook
gosh.
accounts have disappeared, so my male one and my female one, which is a bit of a nightmare because I have years worth of photos that I'm trying to like
Oh
get
my
back.
gosh.
So I am on Facebook, but it probably looks like
Yeah,
I've deleted my account or something right now. So I'm trying to get that
yeah.
back. But yeah,
Well, good
You'll
luck
find
with
me.
that, my goodness.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for all of your beautiful wisdom. Thank you
Thank you,
so
Emily.
much for the journey that you've taken to inspire so many other people. You're just a true treasure.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been lovely chatting with you.
All right. Bye bye, honey.